So the season is basically over, and next season we're going to be under the new ban list that everyone's saw by now, and that everyone has some, let's say, opinions on. So I'll discuss what I think of it, and below I have listed cards for the specific decks that they try to hit in the ban list. I've offered alternative hits that they could have done that may or may not be more effective than what they actually did. So to begin with, right? Why don't we start with the best hit from the ban list, which is the Purrely hits, Delicious Memory and the White Cat Purrely. And these Delicious Memory to 2 is a good hit, since we don't have the other Baby Gnar E Purrely Gnar. The only real way to guarantee making Gnar turn 1 is when you have access to Delicious Memory. And obviously when it's at 2 instead of 3, you only have a 66% chance of adding it off of My Friend instead of 100%. So, you know, 66% of the time, it works every time. But the other 1/3 of the time, and it doesn't hit, you're going to have to do other plays. And you might have to actually run more of the trap cards, which are not good, which people only ran one of before, since it's not good to draw, especially going second. But with Memory at 1, Delicious Memory at 2, you might have to make some concessions of deck building. And what I really liked is the Purrely hit to 2. Now, I have some alternative thoughts about what they could have done with this, but this is sort of a nerf to a Ghost Trick engine. People are saying, you see the Ghost Trick here? I'm not going to put the Ghost Trick anywhere on the panels. Don't worry, I'm not going to hit the fucking Ghost Trick cards. But with the weird thing is, with 5 cats they have available right now, you can still technically do the full Ghost Trick line. You can even end on UDF double Gnar if you sack into the Delicious Memory. But you do have to use one of your discards, one of your quick play spells to summon a second Black Cat if you want to do that, so that you lose a lot of value there. And just having less White Cats in general, it hurts any discard outlet, not just the Ghost Trick engine in particular. Since the biggest appeal of running discard outlets is that you can just chain quick play spells into White Cats and keep hitting off the White Cats, then you would have infinite activations of the quick play spells because you have a discard outlet, which obviously you can only do that twice now since it's semi-limited, and it makes playing around hand traps harder since you have less resources and yada yada. Now, these are good hits for now, and Purrely may or may not be the best deck, but its power level is lowered by quite a bit from the ban list. The problem is, I don't know when we're getting the E Purrely Gnar, the Black Cat. If we do, and if the deck is just like it is right now, I think it's still going to be better than all the other decks that you see in this, that they try to hit in the ban list. Because E Purrely Gnar essentially gives the deck 2 good Purrely Xyz they can go into turn 1 that will facilitate Gnar. It even sets Eep directly from the deck. So, because now you have 2 good targets, and you can make E Purrely Gnar with Sleeping Memory, now the number of good targets you can hit off My Friend, it's no longer just the 2 Delicious Memory that you can hit, you can also hit the 3 Sleeping Memory, which means the hit to Delicious Memory effectively doesn't do anything as soon as E Purrely Gnar gets here, because then you can just hit off, you're guaranteed to hit a good quick play spell off My Friend anyways. So that's might be a concern. I don't know how they want to hit it in the future. I think they might, as weird as it sounds, they might semi-limit, like pre-hit semi-limit Sleeping Memory when we're about to get the pack of E Purrely Gnar in it, just to like attempt to solve that problem, even though it doesn't really, because you still, even with these 2 at 2, you still have 4 guaranteed good. You still have 4 hits off of My Friend. That's kind of weird. What I would have done actually with Purrely is, I personally would have not done anything besides except put the White Cat to 1. By putting White Cat to 1, this is like the what this effectively kills the Ghost Trick engine, since now you have enough, you can't really take advantage of the discard of any discard engine anymore. And also, Purrely is the one that's not hard once per turn, and it's the one that snowballs your advantage and lets you play through everything. But if you limit the white cat, then you do effectively make it a hard once per turn, right? Sort of. You can discard the trap and put it back, but I mean, realistically, you're probably 99% of the time you're probably only going to use this once a turn, and that's a big hit because that makes your plays more linear. It's honestly, it might be a bit harsh for the current meta, since probably doesn't even have all its support cards yet. Like maybe when Purrely Noir hits, this might be a more appropriate hit. But right now, that with Delicious to 2, I can understand them not wanting to hit the deck further, since I mean, they do have to also keep this deck playable, Master Duel, until it gets all its support. So I guess it's keeping it at semi-limit is fine. And Sleepy right now can stay unlimited, but whenever Purrely Noir comes, I probably will change our tunes on that. And speaking of changing our tunes, let's talk about the real controversial one. Okay, Diameter. I legit thought that when they limited Diameter, I thought they got the wrong Mathmech card. Like. I literally thought they just typed in the wrong card, the card name, and they were gonna fix it later on. That's not what's happened. They just straight out hit Diameter. I see some people trying to gaslight themselves into thinking that this is a good hit. In what world? So does this help? Does limiting Diameter like curb the power level of the deck? Does it make the deck weaker? No, Diameter is the card you search in your normal summon, whether it's at 1 or at 3. Your board is the exact same as it was before. So does it hurt consistency by putting it to 1? Not really, because Diameter is like the one of your cards, one of your Cyber's monsters that's actually not a starter. Like if you open Diameter and no Circular, like the Diameter is like probably actually the worst Cyber's monster for you to open, since it costs a normal summon, so it competes with better normal summons like Firewall Defender or Aratama or Dotscaper, and it's not an extender like the other Mathmech names like Addition and Subtraction. Those are level 4 extenders that can help you get into Allen Version if you don't open Circular. But Diameter is like, you don't really want to draw Diameter like at all most of the time, unless you already open Circular, in which case, like, well, you know, you're just good at the game. But what you're really hitting by hitting Diameter is their follow-up, their turn 3, where, you know, after they do their combo turn 1, then on turn 3 they can search the Diameter again, and then have that as follow-up. But I mean, that's like, arguably, like, that's like the way less important part about the Mathmech. Okay, like, it's the fact that they have a 1 card that puts up 2 to 3 interruptions and like a draw plus a Trishula setup on your opponent's turn, and then it's also facilitates a 1 card OTK without normal summoning. Like by the time it gets to turn 3, half the time if they resolve their combo and you don't have Bitch Shields or anything to interrupt them, the fact that they don't have a Diameter for follow up, like, it doesn't matter. Oh no, what is a Cyber's deck gonna do with 1 whole less body? Like, come on. If they the really base thing Konami could have done is if they were adamant on not hitting Circular and just going after Diameter, they could have banned Diameter. Okay, banning Diameter actually makes a difference, since it all that follow up stuff, all this extra copies of Diameter that you can go for like turn 3. That, like, yeah, there's no follow up Diameter, but also it actively does affect the power level of the deck, since they're now working with 1 less body on their turn, and they're what's that monster called? Laplation will not have a negate. If they really want to go after Diameter, I think they should have banned this. Actually make a difference, because right now this makes so little difference. Like, there's gonna be maybe 5% of Mathmech games where the diameter being at 1 instead of the 2 that they already ran. They only ran 2 anyways. So like you're losing 1 copy of diameter from your deck at most. Like it's gonna matter in like 5% of the games, but that's it. And there's a lot of other things that they could have done to Mathmech 2 besides hitting the diameter. First of all, the semi-limited mining, like it's the Master Duel stuff. It's like whatever. It's gonna affect like one in every 10 or one in every 15 games that you don't draw the cyanide mining, and that actually matters in your hand. It's like whatever. I mean, it's not gonna be a big impact, but I suppose having 2 is better than 3 if you're playing against Mathmech, so it's fine. You can keep this at 2. It's not a big deal. So the things I want to discuss are, so we talked about the potential of banning diameter. What about banning Sigma, right? If you ban Sigma, then it turns circular into not a 1-card combo, it turns into a 2-card combo. But if you open circular plus any other extender, you still do the full thing like it's the normal, but you have to actually spend deck space on more of the bad Mathmech monsters instead of just running 1 circular and like 15 hand traps, because all you need is 1 card to combo up. Now you actually have to make a deck building choice if you don't have to auto Sigma send. And there's also banning Super Factorial, which, if there's no Super Factorial, Mathmech would still be the best Cybers deck by a long shot, because you know what one circular still gets you? It gets you Terahertz plus Heat Soul, plus which is a Spell Trap negate, 2 draws, and another blanket like negate on a face-up card during your opponent's turn off of 1 card. By the way, it's not, you're still a Cybers deck. You still have all the non-engine, all the hand traps that you can draw off the Heat Soul, plus 4 other cards in hand that you didn't need to use. So like either of these hits would curb the power level of the deck, but I can see that they're not actually trying to, hit the power level of the deck. They're actually going for consistency. In which case, if you were going for consistency, right, like none of this stuff, like I discussed why diameter like does not affect the consistency of the deck, right? The consistency hit to the deck is putting it at 1, like the other 2 formats. Or hell, I would take it. Put it at 2 because you put Cyanide Mining at 2. So that's effectively losing 2 copies of the deck. Like 2 copies of Circular. Like the real toxic thing about Circular is that it's not just it is both a 1-card combo and it plays through infinite hand traps. 1 Circular needs to be hand trapped twice in order to stop just Circular that you invested zero resources into, not even your normal summon. So if by limiting the copies of Circular, right, like I think personally it should just been this. I know it's the boring hit, it's the OC, it's the same as OC and TCG, but it's really the best way to hit the deck, because by limiting Circular, now you're forcing them to actually hard search it, either through Allen Version, through mining, or Droll. So now that actually gives you an opportunity to hand trap them and like a real choke point. Because Circular is not a choke point. Like the fact that you need 2 hand traps to stop this, and then they can still normal summon literally any card and still end on a Heat Soul, and then potentially even more Cybers monsters. It's stupid. Like 3 hand traps to end on your opponent drawing 2 cards and having like 5 cards in hand to your 2. But if you put out at a 1, then when you don't hard draw, now you can actually hit the mining, hit the small world, or hit the Allen Version of a hand trap. That's an actual way that you can potentially try to stop Mathmech. And you still have the multiple ways. That's the Mathmech player. You can still access Circular through a million ways. Now you just have to spend more resources to get to your auto win 1-card combo card. Okay, so hopefully that's not a controversial take that like diameter is like a bad hit to the deck. Like hopefully I'm not alone on this, right? After that, it's the speaking of irrelevant hits, okay, Circular is, diameter is like one thing, but you know what's even more irrelevant than diameter to 1? It's Stovey Torby to 2. Like, oh no, man, I lost one copy of my Welcome Lab. Now I only have 11 copies instead of 12. Damn, that's sure gonna matter, like more than one every 25 games or whatever. Like, this is effectively a nothing hit. I don't know, like, whether you hit Lab or not. Like, I think they literally just put the Stovey Torby on the Banlist just to say that they hit Lab. Because if they didn't, if they just left it at 3, it would have been literally the exact same thing. Like, I don't think anything would change, but it would just be that people would be complaining about there being no Lab hits. So they just put the least, like, the smallest hit possible, so that they could say that they hit Lab without actually hitting Lab. That's what the Stovey Torby is. And what would you actually hit in Lab? Well, I first of all, I think D-Beer is like, this is not just a Lab hit, right? It's the fact that Lab can access D-Beer, which is a turn-ending floodgate, is toxic, but also this is a hit to thrust, and Konami has shown that they don't like thrust targets, like just generic toxic cards you can add off thrust. That's why they banned a pointer. So like, this to me seems like a slam dunk move. Like, you're hitting both Labrynth, like the toxic part of the Labrynth, which is the floodgates, and you're hitting toxic part of thrust, which is thrusting for D-Barrier. Like, I don't know why they, like, would anybody really be upset with this? Like, even Lab players? And to go along with that, EEV. So here's the thing, EEV is a lot worse than D-Barrier in the Master Duel meta, right? It's just like blanketing a extra deck type is stronger than semi-blindly trying to hit a spell or traps, because some decks don't even run like a high amount of spells or traps to hit. And like, if you saw like Ryan Yu, I'm pretty sure his 3rd place Labrynth list, global 3rd place, did not even run EEV. Would I like Eradicator gone? Like, absolutely. The fact that a searchable card that can just auto-win against some decks, I think should not exist in this game, especially for a deck that's already as strong as Lab. But if you really like want to get down to it and say what's the priority to hit in Labrynth, Eradicator is unfortunately not one of them. I believe it's already limited, so that only really Labrynth can play it and actually search it. There's no trap trick stuff, and it's honestly like not even necessary to run in Lab in the first place. So I suppose you could leave Eradicator and just ban the Dimension Barrier. Now, the actual engine hits to Lab, I don't think this deck like needs to be killed or anything. I don't think the engine itself is too strong. It's just like, for example, if you wanted to really like neuter the deck, you would put Big Welcome to 1. Right? By putting Big Welcome to 1, it means you effectively takes away 1 interruption from them, since they cannot use the effect to banish itself to bounce a card you control, or to bounce a card in general. Because if they do that, then they have no more Welcome Labs the rest of the game. So like, it makes it so that they have to hold their interrupt, or just lose access to their Big Welcome Labyrinth for the rest of the game, and that's obviously huge. And honestly, that's actually quite a big hit, because it's also a consistency hit. You know, now you can't hard draw the Big Welcome as much. And for spoilers, my ideal hit to Labrynth is not gonna be hitting Stovey Torby, so you can just put this unlimited right now. Other things is Kulak. Hitting Kulak to anything but banned, like, literally does nothing, because 99% of Mathmech, Jesus Christ, Lab players, they only run 1 Kulak anyways, and you know, Kulak doesn't make sense to ban. Like, it's not really that. It's a 3-card combo to get it off. That's vulnerable to disruption, right? So I feel like the Kulak part of the deck is not really the toxic part, or even like the stronger part of the deck. Like, I can stay at 3. And I agree that limiting Big Welcome is probably too big of a hit for the deck in its current state, since it's not. I don't think it's getting any better. Not until it gets its new support, which we're not gonna get like transaction rollback for a long time in Master Duel. So if anything, at most, at least semi-limiting. I feel like semi-limiting Big Welcome Lab is a better hit than semi-limiting Stovey Torby if you're gonna go that route at all. The actual hit that I like is putting Ariana to 1. Obviously, if you put Ariana to 1, you don't. I don't think you have to really touch anything else with the deck besides the Dimension Barrier, since the Ariana is like, if you're gonna hit consistency of the Labrynth deck, I think the best thing to hit is actually the Ariana, since it gets you the most, right? It searches any card in the deck. It's not, whereas the furnitures only search trap cards, and then the hitting the actual Labrynth cards don't really do anything unless you limit them, which is probably a bigger hit than what Master Duel was trying to go for. So by hitting Ariana right, it also searches your Lady Labrynth if you don't have it, and if you're trying to do the play with the Coup Clock, it makes your Coup Clock plays worse, sort of, since you can't just bounce Ariana back to your hand with the Big Welcome, and it also means you see Lady Labrynth less when you want to see it, when you're trying to do the Coup Clock combos and stuff on turn 1, since you ideally you want to activate Big Welcome, right, and then you want to use the Lady Labrynth to set another trap. But with only one Ariana now you either want to run more copies of the Big Labrynth, the Big Lady, which is a brick. Don't get it twisted. You also especially do not want to draw multiples because it's kind of pointless, and you only really ran 2 in the first place just in case like one gets banished. So by limiting the searcher to it, you either have to run more suboptimal cards instead, or you just don't see that play as often. And hitting Ariana to 1, it curbs the turn 1 Coup Clock plays already without needing to ban Coup Clock. So you can still have an option to do that, but it's a much bigger investment and it's less consistent as well. And it's also a better consistency hit than like Stovey Torby. Like, jeez, I can't get over that they limited, semi-limited Stovey Torby. Moving on. So now we're on to the part where they limited Runick Fountain. So this is kind of weird because obviously the Runick Fountain hit was to hit Runick Stun. Runick Stun was, against all odds, I think the second most successful deck last Duelist Cup, which is that is the absolute worst timeline we could be in. that Runick Stun is still a meta deck because it only got better with Time Tuning Morganite, which is literally a wet dream for stun players. So, and logically you would think, yeah, well, if Runick Stun needs to be hit, hit Runick Fountain, right? Well, yes, kind of, but the thing is, like, I need to ask you, are you gonna run Cosmic Cyclone in your decks because Runick Fountain's at 1 now? Or were you running Cosmic Cyclone before for Runick Fountain? Because if your answer is no, then this may not be as big of a hit as like it might seem on the surface. It's not really a consistency hit that much, since literally every Runick card in your deck says add Runick Fountain already. So like you're still gonna have access to Runick Fountain, and if you're not running like the big part of like hitting Runick Fountain from 2 to 1 is that if you remove it in a way that like doesn't send it to the grave, it's gone forever. They'll never get Runick Fountain again. But how many decks are really running ways, specifically targeted ways, to actually get rid of Runick Fountain in the first place, right? There's Cosmic Cyclone, what I mentioned, which I don't think it's being played that much, like if at all. There's one of the funny ways is banishing a fountain off of your opponent's Runick cards, own Runick cards, or banishing it off of like a Rise Heart, which is like, I mean, it's a thing, but not for most decks. And then there's like Fender, which, yeah, Fender is like the big thing that can remove Runick Fountain. Again, if you're playing Runick Stun though, what's the chance of you being able to resolve a Fender attack directly to banish a fountain? Like I don't know, man. That seems like a pipe dream for me whenever I play against Runick Stun. So if you're not actively trying to remove Fountain in like that sort of way, then they can still recycle it from the grave with Gary, right? If you need like a specific form of removal to actually hit the Fountain and so that it never comes back. And what this does by limiting it to one is, I think it actually affects the non-stun versions of Runick a bit more than it does the Runick versions. Because again, it's not consistent. Every Runick deck will have access to Fountain still, even if it's that one. But what the non-stun versions of Runick do is they will abuse the fact that Fountain is not a hard once per turn, and then they will simply activate Fountain multiple times and then draw like from it multiple times a turn. They'll draw like 5-6 cards from it. So obviously with Fountain at 1, that's not longer a thing. And as someone that plays like Runick Material and Runick Sprite, that's honestly that's toxic. You know, you shouldn't be able to draw 6 cards in one turn. Like what is this like super rejuve Dragon Ruler shit? Like no, I can understand, but even as someone that plays the non-Sun version of Runick, I understand Fountain not being hard once per turn is like a dumbass design. So unfortunately, for Stun though, Stun does not. I don't think Stun can really take advantage of the fact that Runick Fountain was not a hard once per turn anyways. So like it, realistically, unless you path the out Runick Fountain, I don't think it changes how Runick Stun functions as a deck, and it kind of hurts the non-stun versions a bit more, since they also, the non-stun versions don't, depending on the variant, like Runick Sprite and Runick Sprite for hire, they can't really protect the Fountain in the extra zone, even in the field zone, even because they have a monster occupying the extra monster zone, so you can't like use a Runick spell to even protect the Fountain in the first place, like Stun or Naturia could. So then the real thing is, the hit Runick Stun, right? The only way you're gonna ever hit a stun deck is you see these floodgates, right? Teasaboot is just, I put it here as like a way to represent every floodgate in the game. Unless you do this to floodgates, stun will never go away. Runick Stun will never go away. There will be some sort of stun that still works. And as much as I and many others would like a ban list such as this, where every floodgate is banned, that's just not realistic. I don't think that will ever happen. Like, they did a good job in Master Duel, at least limiting most of the problematic floodgates. So I would say, first of all the floodgates that are still semi-limited, like Teasaboot, like Anti-Spell, or like I guess maybe some of it in the future when we really when we're really hitting floodgates, like put every single floodgate to limit it at the very least. Okay, it's not gonna solve the problem, because if every single floodgate was at 1, you still have more than enough floodgates to put in Sun decks to still function properly. Like for God's sake, Runick Stun was running Synchro Zone. Okay, Synchro Zone, which is literally just a trap version of Messenger of Peace, and that fucking worked. If you look at the TCG, like Begone Knave, fucking just cards from like the Legacy pack and like from your bulk from 2005 are being played. Just because they're a purple card with a continuous symbol on it. So, I mean, I don't know how to hit Runick Stun without just killing like a quarter of a fifth of the cards in the entire game, which is, again, that's never gonna happen. So the best I can do is just limit every stun related card, I suppose. And so this card Demise, I would like it here. More realistically, I think it'll most likely end up here if it gets hit at all, since Pot of Extrav is limited, and this is just a better Pot of Extravagance for decks. And the counter argument is always, oh, this is Card of Demise is only played in like bad decks and decks that the less common decks, the non-meta decks. Well, Runick Stun, if Runick Stun was the second best deck in Duelist Cup, you know, that argument goes out the window. Now it's being played in one of the best decks in the game, apparently. So there's no reason why this is still at 3. Like every other strong pot in the game, this should be appropriate. Likewise, Inspector Border. I don't even think, like, this doesn't even really matter. The Inspector Border is not even like remotely the best card in the deck. But seeing how they limited on Mono Waddle and they limited all the floodgates, you know, why not put this here too? It's not like they can't fill their deck space with more floodgate-like cards. Like there's like what's the issue with putting the border here? You know, the border patrol. Well, next up we got 2 cards played in Dragon Link. Now this is, I believe, this is the first time they actually hit a Dragon Link card. I suppose they pre-hit Magnamut and Jerusalem like before they even got to Master Duel. I don't know if that was directed as a hit to Dragon Link or just as directed as a hit to Magnamut is like a fucking broken card and invalidates any light and dark strategy if they exist. So yeah, I'm leaning towards the latter on that. But yeah, this does absolutely nothing right now. Like this dragon hit is not about what's gonna happen now. It's gonna be what's happening later. Since most dragon decks were running over 40 cards already, so you can literally look at your average Dragon Link deck and take out 1 copy of Quick Launch and 1 copy of Chaos Space, and then that would be it. That would be the changes. You don't have to do anything else. You can play it like it's the exact same. And we are gonna get Bestial Dispotter sometime in the future, maybe. They've been holding that off for a long while, which is I thought we would have had it by now, but. Yeah, obviously until we get that, I don't think they can really hit Dragon Link too hard since, again, they gotta sell cards, and it's no point. Like this batter, I know it can be played in other decks, but it's a Bestial card, and you don't want to hit the deck that uses Bestials the most, I suppose. So why don't we look at the hits that the other formats did? So I guess we can look over Chaos Ruler. Okay, so Chaos Ruler, every other format it's banned. Though the interesting thing is, I don't think Chaos Ruler was banned in either format because of Dragon Link. It was banned because of tier limits. So in Master Duel, they hit tier limits in a different way, to where it doesn't rely on Chaos Ruler anymore. So if the only reason they hit Chaos Ruler in the minds of like Konami is for tier limits, then yeah, this Chaos Ruler is not going anywhere. Now, do I think it should be banned eventually? Yes. And like the thing is, like the fucked up thing is, Dragon Link does not need Chaos Ruler right now. Without Chaos Ruler, it would still be stronger than it is in the TCG and stronger than, you know, obviously in the LCG still. But yeah, maybe they want to hold off until the real hits for Dragon Link, until at least this spotter comes, and then when this spotter comes, you know, really I feel like they need to realize that Dragon Link is actually like a good deck, not just some meme that Japanese and like OCD players hate playing for some reason. I don't really get that, but the Striker Dragon, I'm not gonna say this. This is, if you want to kill Dragon Link, do this. If you want the one single most effective hit to Dragon Link, you put Striker at ban. Nobody is, I don't think anyone is suggesting that, not even Joshua Schmidt's joke tier list. So what I propose is you put Striker Dragon at 1. Okay, this doesn't actually do too much. What putting Striker Dragon 1 is, it makes the deck an even bigger skill check than it is right now, since the good players will know how to properly recycle their resources, and they will not be hurt by having 1 Striker Dragon like in the TCG. Like Dragon was still insane in TCG with 1 Striker Dragon. This is gonna hurt like the less experienced and the bad Dragon Link players, because then they're gonna, the ones that always, especially the ones that do Dill combos, try doing. Imagine the average like Dill enjoyer trying to do a Dill combo with 1 Striker Dragon. Like, man. Yeah, put this to 1, and it's not really a hit at all, honestly. Like as opposed to what Dragon players will tell you, you can function completely fine with limited. Regain is the card, and Chaos Space is the card. You can infinitely recycle Striker Dragon if you know what you're doing. And like, this isn't. I'm not gonna suggest any other things. Like, I'm not gonna like kill the deck. Like, it's not. Doesn't really need that. that level of hit. At most, again, at most, Chaos Ruler will have to go eventually. If not now, probably later. And Konami will probably realize that, since we're also getting Revolution Synchron stuff soon, I'm assuming, which just says Turbo L Chaos Ruler. And the last hit on the ban list was Pot of Desires. So Pot of Desires just kind of caught people off guard because people were like, what deck is playing Pot of Desires right now? Like none of the decks that we mentioned really commonly play Pot of Desires. So, and like the closest thing I think like that's adjacent to like a top deck, because like God knows, I think Kashtira is like called nicknames Trash Tira for a reason. But the only deck that's even meta adjacent that's playing Pot of Desires commonly, I think, is Kashtira. So if this is like a hit to Kashtira, I guess. I mean, I agree. Pot of Desires. Pot of Greed. This is basically Pot of Greed. But Pot of Desires being the only pot that's unlimited, that's good, is kind of strange. Like I do understand them trying to hit it. It's just weird timing to hit it now when most decks aren't even running it, but I suppose. And then that begs the question: does Kashtira need more hits? I don't think so. Probably the deck's like not like the deck is super toxic, and none of the games you play against Kashtira are enjoyable in any way for one reason or another. But unfortunately, I think Kashtira cannot be argued that it's worse than every single other deck they try to hit on this ban list, and because of that, that makes Kashtira like at best maybe the 6th or 7th best deck in the format. So unfortunately, that means a Rise Heart probably just doesn't justify a hit, so it's still going to be on the periphery of the meta, and you're just going to randomly have to deal with a Rise Heart still, which that makes it like that's hella annoying. I mean, I would like to see this first of all. This is sort of a hit to Kashtira, I suppose, but really, Shifter was always tolerated. I don't know if it was tolerated is the right word, but it was always accepted that, at least when it was only played in like the off meta decks and the anti meta decks. But whenever a meta deck can use Shifter, that's so toxic, because we're in Master Duel too, we're max illegal, so now you have 2 turn-ending hand traps, and it's like, so if you're already a meta deck, you're already a top tier deck, why do you also get to run a turn skip, right? Realistically, I don't think they're gonna hit. I don't think Shifter's going anywhere. I think it's gonna stay at semi-limited. I would like Shifter at 1, because guess what? One Shifter is better than 2 Shifters. You know, you see it half as often. But yeah, I don't think this unfortunately justifies the move. If Kashtira was slightly better, if Kashtira was maybe like a top 4, top 3 deck, then you could maybe justify a hit to Shifter. But right now, unfortunately, we're just gonna have to deal with it at 2 from now on, and just randomly play against the Bank of Show player that's on 2 the Shifter as well. Love that. A Rise Heart. Okay, so I really think Rise Heart should go to 1, because one of the most toxic things you can do with Kashtira still is double a Rise Heart, and it's not like double a Rise Heart is like not some 1 in every 5 or 6 games thing where it's like it barely comes up and it like dies to every disruption. Like literally, double a Rise Heart is a 2-card combo. That's it. If you don't brick, which I know is saying a lot, but if you don't brick while playing Kashtira, you have like a 50% chance of being able to put 2 Arises on the board instead of 1, which is super toxic. It cuts the amount of outs you have by a whole lot. You know, Infirm now no longer works. Even if you Infirm the Rise Heart, half the hands that make double Rise Heart, they can just hard make a Rise Heart since they have that many extra bodies. So like the Infirm is like it's like doesn't even guarantee that they don't get a Rise Heart off, which is kind of, it's like that's the one thing that Infirm was supposed to be good at, that it's supposed to guarantee in the matchup, that they wouldn't get to a Rise Heart. Also, you know, Kaijus, if you have 2 Rise Heart, you know, 1 Kaiju doesn't do it, and even Herald of the Abyss, like yeah, they won't be able to use the second Rise Heart, but you're still under macro because it doesn't remove it from the field, and that's honestly the bigger deal with a Rise Heart most of the time, and not the pop. Well, like, maybe this is just me being like the one Kashtira player left that's the one guy that knows how to play Kashtira that's still willing to play Kashtira. But like that's like complaining about how often I make double Rise Heart, but like I don't know, like if I'm playing my Salamangreat deck and my opponent puts a double Rise Heart, I'm leaving the game immediately. Like there's no way I'm playing through that. But yeah, I mean I'm gonna put it here just for me. Like if you do this, I don't think you need to hit Kashtira ever again for the entire rest of Master Duel. Like it'll be a completely fine deck otherwise. And then like there's this thing about Fender. Okay, so Fender, if you hit Fender, right? If you hit Fender to anything that's not banned, it will not. It's not a hit to Kashtira. Like that's contrary to popular belief. Kashtira Fender is not the best card in Kashtira. It's not a one card starter. You need Birth or Feels to still play if you open Fender, which is like the same as if you open Rise Heart, basically. Like it's Kashtira Fender is as much of a starter in Kashtira as Kashtira Rise Heart is. So if you hit Kashtira Fender, you're effectively, and you're like, let's say you limit it, right? You're hitting every other deck that plays Fender. You're not actually hitting Kashtira that hard, since Kashtira wants to like summon it for Feels first, or like add it off like a field spell and then normal summon it. Like it doesn't really does not hard drawing Fender is not as big of a deal in Kashtira. So it doesn't make sense to really hit it in that sense, since unless you really want to ban it, if you think it's a problem to every deck is playing it, which is absolutely not. I don't even think. I might make a video on this later, but I don't think Fender is the best card of this format at all. And if you're playing Fender just to add another copy of Fender, I think you're personally doing it wrong. So I don't think Fender like really makes sense to be hit at all. And that's closer to how I would hit the decks that Konami tried to hit in the ban list. Well, also like obviously not trying to kill any one particular deck, since I don't think any single deck deserves just to be banned outright, except Runick Stun, but we've already discussed why that's basically not possible. So yeah, these are hits that actually impact the decks that they're trying to hit, and it's not just window dressing, but they're still going to be functional and playable, and still I would argue that they would still be the best decks afterwards. It was just in a more quote-unquote fair way. Let me know in the comments what you think of the ban list, and if you agree or disagree with anything I said, feel free to post a comment or a question about that. I'm happy to engage in some more conversations.